Hi, everybody. Welcome to You Are the Operant Power with Gail and
Jane. Hi, Gail. Hi,
Hi,
everyone.
Jane. Hi. It's actually been a while since
Yeah,
it. Jane's been on vacation, living her best life.
yeah.
So we're back now at it. And what we're going to talk about today is at least we're going to start with living subjectively versus living objectively.
Oh, yes.
And this has been coming up in various areas with people that I speak with, and we talked about it this morning briefly, um, and it's a hard one to get your head around initially. It takes a lot of sort of focusing on trying to understand and looking at what you're experiencing and where's that coming from and where's that whatever you're accepting is true, is that really true, or is that because somebody said that it's true and it must be true, objectively speaking? And for our purposes, for understanding, objective living is what we see with our senses, with our five physical senses, and subjective living is what we imagine in our minds. And eventually, as you get really proficient at living subjectively, your objective world becomes the same as your subjective world. Kind of cool, because when the more you live subjectively, then all of that stuff manifests and becomes your objective world as well.
Can you substitute subjective and objective with conscious and unconscious? Or no?
I'm not going to, because
Okay.
I'm going to have to be like, well, is it like,
Okay.
because we
So I've been noting.
Go ahead.
Okay, I was just noticing that when I live objectively or think objectively, or narratives come to me objective, like when a narrative comes to me, I'm noticing I'm able to go, is that your belief? Like I can ask myself questions if it's something that is really big, but I just told you, I fell out of that into the objective, wanting to control the objective again. And every time it doesn't go well. It's a really weird thing. It almost feels like it's almost like I've been living subjectively, and then even the people around me reflect back immediately that I'm living objectively, because they refuse to take any of the information in that I try to do objectively. Like it's like when you say to someone, you should do this. And it's kind of like received like that. So it's like instead, what I didn't take the time to do was to say to myself, okay, what do you want? And I got caught up in what I didn't want, and I was trying to get to there, but it was a bunch of oranges came up for me. So then a bunch of oranges just start coming. It's like one of those tennis ball machines. Once you go into that, it's like boom, 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 boom. And you're like,
well,
oh.
You know what? Even doing, okay, when you say you're trying to control the objective, that means you're trying to talk to people and reason with people.
Yes.
And to change their perspective.
Yes.
By using your voice only.
Yeah.
As opposed to imagining.
Yes.
Get it. Like, it's great how they get it. And even if they're not showing you that, you still know in your mind, yeah, no, they just told me they get it. Or you revise, you're hearing what you want to hear. And that is what's going to make the change on the outside.
Yeah, because
you need to change on the inside to change.
Yes. So I remembered all the things you had told me about, like the thoughts once I got into that place of trying to control, it went bad. And then once I was trying, like, recovering my thinking, I had all these emotions coming up because they're attached, I guess, to the whatever the control issue is, like, or
So give an example. Give an example.
okay, so
Doesn't have to be personal, just an example. So we
yeah, like I say to someone, well, you know, I want you to well, I guess the best way to frame it was pay attention to me. Like I was trying to get the person to understand, oh, I need you to pay attention. And instead of saying that and identifying what it was I wanted them to pay attention to, I got into this discussion about paying attention. And everybody has a different take on that. So it didn't quite it it
Okay,
wasn't.
so even though you want to talk to them about paying attention, unless you've changed that inside, that everybody, well, I don't even know about pays attention is what you really want, is you want them to understand how life works, how living their best life. You know what I mean? Like it's whatever you want to talk to them about, you want them to already understand that. You imagine they already understand that. So you don't
Yes.
have that conversation.
Yes. Yes. See? So what happened for me was that was actually coming from an old narrative that people don't pay attention to me when I want them to. So
They
that
just
was
confirmed it for you.
yes, right. So I was like, okay, I kind of felt that, and I want to say it was, is it fair to say, like, I guess an orange is an orange, and I don't want to attach any more narratives to it. So it was just like a giant orange in my face. And so I was like, okay, well, this is way too big of a reaction to what's being discussed, first of all, because it wasn't really, the discussion really went, it kind of started okay. And then I kept pushing on my end about having it my way. I guess you could say, like, well, see it my way, see it my way. And so I'm assuming they don't. And now I'm focused on basically what I don't want instead of today when I talked to the person, I was like, I just assumed in my mind, everything's perfectly fine. And actually, when I do that, I'm responding in my conversation to my own narrative that everything is okay. So even though they might be saying to me, you know, it's not okay, which they didn't at all. I noticed this with people too. If you come back to the table and you don't go, oh, well, you know, I know yesterday we were talking and it all went wrong and we weren't quite on the same page. It just takes you back into the loop of talking about what you don't want, because it's really, really hard to go back on a conversation anyway. So I was like, well, what do I want here? Like, what is this? What is baseline in all of this? And I did the other side of judgment. I felt the other side of judgment on it because that's my work to do, is to feel not judge. And I was judging, and it's like it sneaks in, you know, oh no, I'm not judging. I just want it my way, and I just want you to do what I like, and I'm not judging you or anything, and you are. So it's
well, and the thing about judgment, it's like you can have whatever you desire. So subjectively living, you can have anything that you want. You can have that person skipping if you want them skipping because you don't like the way they walk. Like, well, you're not using that, but you can have them do whatever you want. But if you objectively try and get them to skip, they're going to look at you like, what?
Right.
And it's almost the same with judgment. I mean, this just kind of has popped into my head, so I haven't fully kind of pondered it and thought it out yet. But does judgment maybe happen more objectively than subjectively? No, I guess not, because everything objectively starts subjectively. But I'm just thinking, like, when you have your desire, you could be considered to be making a judgment, except you're not making a judgment. You're just identifying what you want and then not attaching a story to it. I want that person to skip because I want that person to skip, as opposed to I want that person to skip because I can't stand the way they walk.
Yes.
Judgment, right?
Yes.
So, okay. Just think.
So in the sort of insight that I have around this is that our words can, instead, I've always been like a word person on and trying to control out there. I guess a lot of people do. And when you told me about thinking in your head, okay, well, think in your head first, and it's good because then you can go, okay, well, I don't want that, but I don't want to focus on what I don't want. So you can catch yourself, and then you can go, okay, well, what do you want? And now see that done, see it, all the things, like, you know, if you want a certain outcome, because it is the outcome that you're trying to get in object, like relate or objectifying it, like you're trying to in controlling. So instead of controlling out there, once you shift that and control it in here, and you get rid of all the stuff, it starts to attract the thing that you want naturally, because you're only focused on what you want.
Yeah.
And it's really tricky because the judgment sneaks in for what you want. You know, like, let's see, what's a good example?
Well, that
Like,
just goes back to trying to change the outside without changing the inside. It doesn't work. That's when quarrel happens.
comparing. That's what I wanted to talk to you about, comparing. Comparing comes up a lot. I've had this comparing thing, like with the people around me. So obviously that's something that I do if I'm seeing it come up a lot. So I was like, that's interesting. And comparing seems to split everything too. You know, if you compare your looks to somebody else, oh, well, I'd like to look like that, instead of seeing yourself looking like that and feeling like that. And
well, I mean, that's a desire. I'd like to look like that. Okay, you've got your desire. So now what do you do when you have a desire? You accept it as true. It's
right.
a matter about them. It's not a judgment
Yes.
against them, unless you're like making a judgment against their look.
Yeah, like I think one that people do a lot is, oh, it's easy for you to you know, like everyone talks about their weight and stuff. Oh, it's easy for you to lose weight because of such and such. And it's hard for me. So there's a narrative, there's a story, there's what you don't want. You're supporting inside yourself. You're splitting yourself from you're not paying any attention to what you want. And then, so once you decide, like I did this thing where I tell myself, basically, I'm not aging backwards, but age doesn't mean anything to me. Like I'm not, because as time goes on, there's like, I don't want to attach narratives to that. Like I hear a lot of people, oh, you can't do that because you're that old, or it's going to be hard for you to do that because you're that old. And oh, people that age, they, you know, and I'm like, I don't want any of those stories. Like those stories are ridiculous. I don't need any of that narrative. And
They're showing up for you. Forgive them because they're just showing you what's in your consciousness.
Yeah.
Hand it to your God in your heart, your consciousness in your heart, and you know you're living your best life. You place it with you're living your best life. That like as soon as you bring age into it, even like, oh, age doesn't matter to me,
right,
you're still giving life to that idea.
Yes.
Age, right? So you have to like totally, means nothing to me.
Well, stop categorizing it too, and just like, I feel great today. All is well. like
Yeah.
go to my end, because my end is basically all is well, harmony, unity, and love. Like I was saying, my grandson was screaming today, and I remembered that story you told me, and I was in my head, I was harmony, unity. And then I'd hear this story, another story, and I'd be like, no, harmony, unity, and love. And he'd stop.
Yeah.
And I almost feel like the stories, when the stories would come up for me, he would start screaming again. And then I'd be like, no story. And finally it did stop, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, the important thing about when you're living subjectively is regardless of what you see out in the objective world, you know that it's already done. And that's where the challenge comes, because you're
faith.
things in the objective world that are going to tell you the opposite of that.
Yeah, having faith.
Matter of having faith and staying in that place in your
Yeah.
that it's done, and not start doubting, not start questioning, not start reacting to what you're seeing. And
Well, a lot,
it's kind of a
a
challenge
lot of,
for all of us and part of our pathway.
and all of, yeah, and all of our social media supports judgment. Basically, it's like judging others.
Is yours? Do you notice those judgments?
I noticed that there's a lot of conversation about other, like comparatives, like when they're comparing this and that, and how many people over there did this, and how many people did that, and it's like, okay, well,
What does that mean
that's
to you?
hearsay.
Okay. So then it's not really an issue.
No, I've been, but like we were talking about before too, like what you're ingesting on social media too, like what are you paying attention to? So if you only want to pay attention to what you love and what you want, it's important. I feel like when I'm watching YouTube and stuff, sometimes I'll start watching things that I'm like, well, why am I watching this? Like, this is a lot of narrative that is like, so why am I paying attention to this? I'll ask myself that. And usually at that point, I'll just change. And,
Right. Well, I think it's your reaction. I mean, like I'll watch stuff on social media just because it's piqued my interest for whatever reason.
right.
But what I will watch myself with or on is my reaction to it.
Yes.
I watch, and in fact, I was watching, and I never really do this, but I was watching about these murder mystery. Somebody on Facebook has a channel where she talks about different things, missing people and murders and that sort of stuff that happened. And I don't usually have an interest in that, but something caught my interest and I was listening to it. And as she's describing, it's kind of like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. Oh my God, why would they do, then I'm like, okay, I'm catching myself with my reaction, because that provides me the opportunity to forgive. So it's not that I enjoyed watching it in a sense, but I didn't allow the anger and the, what the fuck? How could they do that? Like that kind of stuff.
Right, right.
I
Yes,
use that
yes.
as an opportunity to forgive. So
Also,
I mean, we don't want to, we got to live. You know what I mean? Like I don't think that we want to get to a place where our reality is so small that we can only watch this because it talks about what we want. You know what I mean?
yes.
So
it's important to acknowledge.
It provides for us opportunity for growth.
And also acknowledge that this is a narrative. So when you're watching a show and it's hearsay and a narrative put together.
If you don't, if you don't watch it consciously, then all of that stuff is seeping into your subconscious purse. It's like I had a conversation this morning with a friend, and she said, I was thinking, about a pink elephant. Did you just think of pink elephant because I said that? I'm like, yeah, I had no choice. So it's like whatever is brought to you is, if accepted, which means not denied, then that will be seeping into your subconscious purse. I mean, using that example, at some point you're probably going to run into a pink elephant, either a picture, a stuffed animal, a real pink elephant. I mean, who knows, right? Nothing is impossible, they say. Unless you consciously say like, no, I don't accept pink elephants even exist in any
Yeah, that was
form or
something.
fashion. And
Yeah,
that's a benign example, because who really cares if you see a pink elephant? Like, it doesn't make or break.
well, I was doing it with behavior, and because I was like, oh, that person did this because of that. And then I was like, you don't think that way anymore,
Yeah.
right? You don't
Yeah.
believe in that narrative anymore. Why? No, you don't believe in any of those narratives, because there's quite a few of them that are attached to relationship for me, for sure, that come up, and they're not coming up when I'm
That's
just
focusing you on what you don't want. Because I think
yeah.
get into, Rita actually had a really good video on, I guess it was Tuesday, this week anyways, and I'll try to remember to link it in the bottom. And she was talking about, it kind of relates to how you always bring up, what do I want? Focusing on what I want. And what her video was about was sort of using things, the phrases negatively. So I don't want a new car, or I don't have a new car, versus I have a new car. From a imagination and creative perspective, they mean the same thing, because the negative is not really understood. So the focus is on the new car. Oh, new car. Okay, let's work.
Yes. Yes.
Whereas I think we have a tendency, unless we are consciously aware, and when we're thinking about our old car, we'll identify like, all I have is this old beat up shitbox. And so then we're giving life to that old beat up shitbox. That's where our focus is. Whereas if you could even say, I don't have a new car, is saying the same thing, but with the focus on new car. So giving life to new car versus beat up old shitbox.
I see.
Really interesting, right? Because it's just a different way.
Yes.
It has you focused on what you want still, even though you don't have it. I mean, it's not a lie.
Yeah.
I don't have a new car.
Yeah, and you're not attaching a narrative to that.
And no, and it's no, I don't have a new car. So I'm not lying to myself about it. But the more focus is on new car, versus I have a shitbox. I don't have a shitbox. The focus is still on a shitbox.
I always say to what about saying I love my car?
Yeah.
And like seeing myself.
Your desires are generated by the consciousness in your heart. So if they're generated by the consciousness in your heart, then it already knows what you want before you consciously know what you want. So it's a matter of having faith in that, right? Like, you love your car, you may want another one. And so you're loving your car from the perspective of this new car you're loving. You don't necessarily have to consciously identify it, because the consciousness in your heart is the one that's generating your desires.
I wonder if you could say, like, I'm driving around in my awesome car, and like you could even like picture, if your car isn't new, and just picture it new.
Sure. Yeah, as long as the important thing is that you have the feeling of it's already here. You already have it. So
yes.
Driving it, that's what you're driving.
Yeah.
But I think, I mean, it's kind of, it almost seems, the more I listen and kind of am sort of working my own mind through all of this stuff, Neville was good, but it seems like it's in some ways a longer route of having to like and from the very beginning, I've always felt like I shouldn't have to go through all of this. Like if this works as it works, then I should be able to manifest just by saying it.
Yeah.
Not there yet because and I'm working on my own inner conversations to get there. But if you listen to Rita, I mean, she's basically saying the same thing. And I think that's why we resonated so much, because that just makes more sense to me than having to focus on every little, like, okay, if the consciousness of my heart generates my desires, then I consciously accept, and what's there to do? Because
have faith.
Well, that's right. Because there's lots of things that we manifest just by thinking once. I mean, this week it was funny because a friend and I that go to the dog park mentioned 2 different people on 2 different days. Like, oh, I wonder what they're doing. Haven't seen them in a while. Haven't seen A in a while. Haven't seen B in a while. And the 3rd day, A and B were both at the dog park. They hadn't been there for weeks. And it wasn't like I didn't hey, hold on, I got to meditate on this and I got to live in the end that I've seen them. Like I didn't have to do any of that. And they showed up.
And
that's the same. It should be. It should be that natural.
Okay. Well, the same thing happens to me. I literally, the day before, I was picturing talking to my cousin, telling him about his shirt that I ended up keeping. We went through all this stuff in the house and I kept this shirt. And we all decided, okay, let's keep, we haven't seen him for a really long time, like 6 years. And he asked me to hold on to it for him. So I was like, okay, well, I have to hold on to it. And I was thinking about all this and I haven't talked to him on MS or Messenger for a while. And bam, he's on there. And he goes, hey, how's it going? I said, really good. I wanted you to, I thought about yesterday about you calling me and here you are. And he laughed because he knows he's I would call him a manifester. He definitely he's been one of my teachers in the process of being conscious. Probably he's very conscious. So it was cute though because I just basically thought about him, imagined it. And
well, the thing is, you imagine, if I say pink elephant to you, whether you're consciously aware of it or not, you are imagining a pink elephant.
Yes.
Like that's just how it is. That's how things work. And that's why, if I wasn't able to, and I've done this numerous times where I've just thought like, oh, I wonder what they're doing, or I wonder what it'd be like to have that. And that stuff shows up. I mean, I didn't sit down. I didn't imagine. I didn't live in the end. I didn't focus any energy on it at all. And it happened. And to me, that's how it should happen.
Yes.
That's how I expect for it to happen.
Yes.
Of course, we have the resistance and the oranges and that sort of thing. And that's all part of the process and the path of getting to that place where, it's just like, oh, I wonder what they're up to, or I'd like to try this, or I'd like to experience that. And those things fall into place, right? And now I don't remember the rest of what my point was. It'll come to me.
Well, and also it's like consciously being present and not, we were talking about that before, about drifting into the future and falling back into the past, and where your thoughts sort of, okay, because I wanted to say I lost faith. I think faith is really important in staying in my end. And I started getting narratives that were questioning that end, really a lot of them. And instead of having faith, I started paying attention to them. And then I started planning on, oh, I'm going to bring these to the other person and talk about them. And it was just like, and I knew I was like, okay, I don't know about this. You better make sure you stay focused on what you want. And I think having a prepared, well, like we said before, even easier than that is just see it in your head, already done. You've already got all that. It's already happening, and have faith. Because I think it's
Yeah.
faith
And
in
just
us
move on
that,
with your life. Just don't,
yeah,
or you think about it, like you have to drop the seed. When you're planting
yeah,
thing, you have to drop the seed. You
yes.
bury it under the
So
ground
I'm digging
and
up the
allow it to
seed.
grow. You water it, maybe, or it rains or whatever, so it's still fed. Um, but you don't like. I don't. To me, the watering, you plant the seed. The watering is that okay? Yes, I accept it's done. That's all the water that the seed needs.
Yeah,
Anytime you think about it, it's almost like it's like you're thinking about it because you really didn't experience it. So you didn't really feel like it was done. And
yes,
your response or your reaction to that would be accepting that it's done again, as opposed to
yeah.
why isn't it here?
So is that what faith is, basically?
It's accepting, well, Neville's definition is, just paraphrasing, it's accepting as that something is seen before it's actually seen.
Mm.
So, but I mean, it's a lot from my sort of just my experiences, um, like with my daughter and the homeschooling. I was having faith in her, of course. Having faith in her was having faith in me because I had to have faith in my faith to be able to have faith in her. And that was like I just knew she would be okay. I had faith in her because I felt like she was smart. She would just manage, no problem. The faith in me was that I could have faith in her. I could
Mm.
in her, and that there was not going to be an issue. And wasn't that there wasn't fear that came up around that, but I just kept going back to no, I have faith. I have faith. I would say at that time I have faith in her, but of course now with what I know, no, I have faith in me because it was all about me. Um,
Hmm.
so I didn't even know what I was going to see with her, other than I knew all was well. And she was going to live her best life. And I didn't even identify it as that at that time. I didn't even think that way at that time. I just, oh, I know she's going to be okay. I just know she's going to be okay. I have faith in her.
Yeah, so it's definitely probably the case that when you're
I think we can
seeing that,
analyze too much, right?
yeah,
Like, okay, exactly what do I want and how do I want it? And which is great to know what you want, but I think it can add in opportunities for, well, if it's like this, then it's got, what about that? I got to worry about, and then it just makes it so complicated.
yeah,
Like it would be worth trying, picking something that you want, just say new car, just for example's sake. I love my car. And you know that you have a desire really for a upgraded car. And just, kind of feeling that, oh yeah, and letting it go and never thinking about it again.
mm-hmm.
Breaks down, your old car breaks down, you don't have a drive somewhere. I just love my car. And just see what happens.
Yeah, I'm gonna try that.
Yeah, because I think that's the thoughts that come up after we do that, I think is what's identifying our resistance to it. And so, I mean, I think the all is well, harmony, unity, love, like those feelings can be really helpful in sort of melting.
Yes, I would say that's a good
Trying not to
description.
think about it too is like, I don't know if that makes sense, trying not to think about it. Not giving any energy to the thoughts.
Yeah,
Yes, any life to the thoughts. I don't know. I mean, it's all a process. We're all learning, right? Let's test things and see what works and what doesn't work. And what works for you may not work for me and vice versa. But I think thinking about how we have manifested is really helpful in what works for us.
Yeah, and I've noticed that um there's different things that are okay. For instance, I manifested I wanted to spend time swimming in the water,
Mhm.
in the lake. Remember, I did that drive up. Now, well, everything keeps coming up water. I went to another lake. I went to a pool. I was walking in the water this morning, and as I'm doing it, it's almost a feeling like I created this, and yet I didn't.
Natural now.
Yeah, it's just I didn't
You need
consciously.
water, and now water is showing up all the time.
Yeah, so I guess it's easier to accept water and good things, but it's the ones that you're manifesting in your mind that you don't want that are coming at you, and you're refusing to accept that. Yeah, I did that one too.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
harder to accept the bad ones and be like, oh, okay, yeah, I did
Without
that.
judgment, without
Without
judging
judgment.
yourself. Yes. Yeah. And really, a lot of times when the things are coming up objectively, it's just oranges. It's just
Yeah,
imaginings that are coming to fruition now. It doesn't
yeah,
that's how it is unless in your mind you accept, oh, this is how it is. I thought it was like however you imagined is what you should be. No, I have faith. That's how I imagined it. And that's just okay, whatever. All is well.
yes, yes.
And refocus on, yeah, no, I have faith. I imagined. And the thing is, when a couple years back when I decided to go back to school, right, and I needed the loan and I had bad credit, and they turned me down. I could have, I think I talked about this before, but I could have appealed. And I thought, no, I'm not jumping through anybody's hoops for this. I'm already graduated school. That was the only thing that I said. That was the only thing I thought. I dropped it and I never worried about it again. And this was like the beginning of August. So I still had only a month to figure out how I was going to pay for school because I was starting in September. And so I never thought about it again. I'm like, whatever, I've already graduated. So I just dropped it. And 2 weeks later, they contacted me totally out of the blue. We've reconsidered, we've looked at your file, and you've been approved. So that was like, I'm not jumping through anybody's hoops. I've graduated school, and then the next day I'm like, oh, how am I going to do this? Like, I got to figure out a way to do this. How am I going to I can't get the money through them. Am I going to have to fill out those? Like, I go through all of,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't have contacted me in 2 weeks.
Right.
Trying to get the loan, right? Because as soon as I would have jumped through one hoop, there would have been another hoop, another hoop, another hoop, because I accepted that I had to do that.
So having faith is a natural state.
Well, it's not natural for most of us, but it's one that we can tap into. But it's conscious focus. No, I have faith that XYZ is done, and then go on.
Yeah.
Instead of because we end up creating all of these stories around why we want it and why it should happen, and that just that's the resistance, is all of these
okay, well,
like
I think that's what I was trying. Yeah.
Bad people.
Yeah, I think
we manifest every day of our lives. That's how
right.
Our reality is. Good,
yes.
Different, it doesn't matter. You still are manifesting your life. So you don't have to be a good person to manifest. That's not a reason for you to you want to manifest money. The fact you're a good person doesn't mean that you're going to manifest money faster or easier than somebody that's a bad person.
Right. Well, how about
what religion has done with the programming is you have to be a good person to live a good life.
Okay. So that's another narrative. So
Yes.
what I was going to say is that we should pay close attention to our narratives that are coming, like being
Or
more
have no
conscious.
narratives when they come up.
That's what I'm saying though, but a lot of people don't even hear that they're speaking narratives. Oh, I don't do that because, you know, this happens when that happens. And you're like, okay, that's your narrative. Like even saying to someone, well, is that the story you want? And they'll say, yeah, oh, no, I don't want it, but that's the story I'm going to
That's
tell.
how
And
it
I'm
is.
going
I got
to
proof.
it.
I got proof of it because this, and this happened.
Well, yeah, that happened to me.
And that's
yesterday.
living very objectively. That's a
Yeah.
good example of living objectively.
Someone's,
And had that thrown at me too.
yeah,
Well, okay, you know that your thoughts and feelings are creating your reality. Like this person knows because they've experienced it. And they're like, no, I know that it's like this because this, and this. And then, oh no, don't.
it was, I feel like it's almost more acceptable to, like we've talked about this before, it's almost more acceptable to believe that the fear narrative rules supreme. Like that they're like, that's what I was running into.
Well,
yesterday.
it does for the majority, but that again, that's all part of the pattern of going through that. And at some point, we've all been there.
Yeah.
We lived in I can't speak for you, but I lived in that whole fear thing.
Yeah.
But I got to the point where it's like, oh, there's got to be more to life than this. And so then I started facing, like the whole legal thing was facing a huge amount of fear. And so
yes,
it's all part of the pattern. So it's all always good. You know, everybody gets it when they get it. And that's okay.
Yeah. Well, yesterday I was talking to my dad and he has a lot of fear narrative and it was a big one. And I was literally picturing almost like I was on the phone and I almost was like, I didn't want it penetrating because it was a really big, like it was a death fear and I was going to die and all this stuff. And if I didn't do this certain thing and all this stuff that he, you know, and I was holding the phone away from my head. And I was basically thinking harmony, unity, and love, harmony, unity, and love. No, that's not attached to me. I'm not going to attach that fear to myself. And I used to have an inclination to try and fix that in words with the person. And I don't do that anymore, which is a huge relief because it usually goes nowhere. So in my mind, I was thinking, yeah, you don't believe that. That's not really what you believe. And let it go. And called him today and just acted as if I'd never had that conversation. You know, and I don't bring things up I don't want to talk about. And that's a good point too. Don't bring things up you don't want to talk about.
That may be a video.
Yeah.
Because I think communication is a big one because in psychology, it's very much talk to the person, tell the person. From their psychology, I shouldn't generalize, but just from my sort of awareness of it. And from this perspective, it's not the same. Like there is no, if you have imagined different, then you're coming from that place, which means that you've forgiven whatever the scenario was. So there's no need to talk about it.
Yeah.
If you haven't forgot about it, then they won't forget about it.
Yes.
What happens when you bring something up, like with you,
right?
You were going to, if you were to bring that conversation up, then you haven't forgiven and forgotten.
Exactly.
And so you're bringing it up, and so then you're bringing it to their awareness.
Yeah, and giving it life.
Yes. Maybe
okay.
Something similar. But we're probably good time-wise. Maybe a little bit longer than we had hoped.
That's okay. We haven't done it for a while.
So just to summarize,
living
subjectively is living in your mind, but in the world. So no matter you see in the objective world or the world of your senses, you know that whatever you've imagined is already done, and that's how it is. And that is what allows it to come out and show itself in the objective world, and allows you to keep your peace, and allows you to not react, and allows you to change things in your reality. Objective living is what your senses are telling you, Caesar's laws, all of that sort of stuff. And so, yeah, so the goal, at least for this channel, for myself, and I think Jane, for you as well, is that we are living subjectively. And so that's kind of the path that we're on, is living at and looking at and perceiving things subjectively, imagining, and then having it manifest out. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah.
Please feel free to share, like, all of that stuff. If you think somebody else can benefit from it, please share it. And we'll be back next week. See you, Jane.
Great to see everyone. Bye.